This is a hard left turn from my usual the content, but I really need to discuss this movie because there's so much historical context behind this movie that I don't think that I've never seen discussed. And honestly, it makes sense in a way that makes me mad that I just need to rant about it to several strangers on the internet. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Shayna. I'm a journalist and I have a lot of ADHD. This was a hyperfixation of mine when I was a child, and I recently rewatched it and I said, hold up, wait a minute. Let's put a little bit of historical context in it. So that's what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna start off with the year that this takes place. This takes place in 1914, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. World War I just started, but also as it relates to American history, as it relates to colonialism, slavery, whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot that comes directly into play with this that we just don't talk about, but it makes so much sense. So let's talk about it. First, let's talk about Sweet. Listen, he's sexy. I get it. He's bald. Also a problem. We can't win it all. But the baldness is not what we're going to be talking about. Once again, historical context. So in the movie, Sweet says that, if I remember correctly, his dad was a Union soldier, his mom is Native American, that's him, still bald, back here, right? So he grows up on the reservation, he gets a degree in medicine from Howard University, and he also goes through a rite of passage. So he has basically two notable degrees, one from Black America and another from Native America. So, according to Disney Wiki, according to Disney Wiki, you don't believe these numbers? Fight them. He was 42 years old by the time that the movie took place, and he was born in 1872. Why is this important? Because he was born 12 years after slavery was abolished. So not only was he born 12 years after slavery was abolished, but he also had the ability to not be born into, like, he was born on a reservation. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so he was like raised in between a reservation and various army outposts. So what does this have to do with anything? Because when it comes to the ongoing effects of slavery as a dark-skinned, large Black man in the United States, there was a lot that he did not experience firsthand. And you see the way that that shows up throughout the movie. So I'm just going to focus on him for a hot second, and then I'm going to hop to some other characters. So for him, how that shows up is, one, the way that it was said that they were just going into all of these spaces and taking artifacts. They were just taking artifacts from dead civilizations, from living civilizations. They were bounty hunters, right? There was which I'm fascinated when it comes to the lack of respect that he had for this as it relates to his native background. It almost seems like he took what he wanted from both of his upbringings and said, I don't have to think about the rest, right? But also, there is clearly a lack of awareness that he has, because in the scene when everybody else is leaving Atlantis, they're like, listen, Milo, best of luck. We are gonna blow this place to the sky. Best of luck to you if you wanna stay here, right? And then eventually Audrey and everybody else, all the good people, are like, oh no, we can't just kill all of them. And then they leave the trucks. Sweet was not there. Where was Sweet? Sweet was over helping the dad that was dying from internal bleeding because O'Rourke, the big evil military man that I will have a whole section about later, he goes and punches an old man in the stomach, right? So Doc Sweet was like, okay, I'm gonna go take care of him, make sure that he doesn't die. Literally nobody else even asks a question about where he is. They were just gonna blow him sky high too, right? There was a lack of awareness of that he is a Black man recently in a world recently post-slavery, and how little people consider his humanity. He was just in the space thinking, oh, I'm just one of the crew. No, you're not. No, you're not. Your people just got their freedom. People still don't consider you people. And he clearly did not have that realization, that recognition, that awareness in this movie. Moving on to Audrey Ramirez. In the movie, she's supposed to be 18 years old. She's from Detroit. She has a sister. She has a mom and a dad. Everybody's like doing pretty good, right? But it also says in Disney that she is of Puerto Rican descent. Now, what I am assuming is that her parents moved from Puerto Rico to Michigan for a better, quote unquote better. Listen, my family's from the Caribbean. They did something very similar, and they may have regretted it because it's America. Anyway, so Puerto Rican descent in Detroit. Why is this important? Because where she was born in 1896, her homeland was officially colonized by the United States in 1898. 2 years later, for those of you who aren't great at math. Now, there could be an argument that her dad, who as mentioned in the movie, was so focused on the fact that he didn't have boys, that he was like, I just want a mechanic and I just want a boxer. That he put all of his energy into cultivating his daughters and to be the perfect image of what he wanted his children to be, so much so that he didn't actually teach them about the realities of what is happening in their homeland, that they don't actually know what colonization is, the damage, the violence, the terror, the trauma that it is to a place that they have direct lineage to, right? There could just be said that like, oh, they moved to the United States and then they were like, okay, we are going to be Americanized. We're going to focus on our success. We're going to get our bag, right? But here's why it's so important for us, no matter where we go, to have a full understanding of our history, especially as it relates to colonialism internationally, if you are a person of color, because here is this woman who comes from a recently colonized place, actively colonizing other parts of the world. Now, I do think that there was a part of her that was like ancestrally triggered when she saw Milo, the lone white savior man, who once again we will be talking about later, standing up for the indigenous people of this place that they are getting ready to blow sky high. And she was like, hold up, we can't just leave him here. Mind you, she also didn't think anything about sweet. They all forgot about the Black Doctor. Pin that right up there. But she was like, okay, wait a minute, something does not feel right about this. Probably because it's something very similar to what your people felt in the annexing or the colonization of Puerto Rico very recently, right? She's like, okay, you know what, I can't do this. I can't, I need to stand with Milo. I need to stand up against us, right? But I just find it fascinating how this also plays into what is happening. But now, which white person do I want to talk about? Let's talk about the villains. I lied. I'm going to talk about Milo first. So Milo, right up here. Okay, so he is an ancient linguist, right? He speaks a language which, it's a wild stretch to be like, hey, this white guy speaks a language that we do not speak. The people here do not speak, right? Okay, we're moving past that, right? So homeboy is a linguist, focuses on like dead languages, right? Hyperfixation on Atlantis. But he can't pronounce Kirakakash's name, and he turns it into a joke. It's giving disrespectful. It's giving negging is what it's giving. For those of you who don't remember, there was a moment where they were climbing where he asked her name and she said, my name is Kirakakash. And then he goes, oh, Kiraga. Not even trying, not even close. And then she goes like, oh, just call me Kita. First, middle, and last, sir. First, middle, and last. And let's also talk about how he literally just cannot think straight, as most men cannot think straight when they are faced with any semblance of an attractive female form, right? Not even just attractive, the female form. Because Helga showed up at his apartment late at night in like she's a beautiful woman, right? In a little black dress. And she's like, oh, just come with me. Don't ask any questions. He's like, oh my God, absolutely. Titties. Of course I'm coming. She could have murdered you. She could have murdered you immediately. She brought you to an undisclosed location with no information. You have no friends or family that you are even in contact with. You could have just died. When it comes to Kita, when she was getting ready to go swimming, she was in a swimsuit. And he was just like, oh, pretty lady. Pretty. Oh my God. Ew. It's literally giving I've never seen a woman a day in my life. Which, like, probably. He basically lives and works in a basement. But, like, touch grass. Now let's talk about the villains, the official villains. All right. So we're going to be talking about Helga and O'Rourke. We're going to start off with Helga and then make our way over here. So Helga is the only daughter of a German military family, right? And something that I think when it comes to the relationship between white men and white women, especially as it relates to power, is so clearly seen here. She just assumed that he would never betray her. Why? Because they have this unspoken white military agreements, I guess, where she's like, oh no, we're in this together. You got me, I got you. Absolutely not. The intersection of race and gender as it relates to power always puts him on top. And look at that face. He knew that. He knew that. She's just out here being like, oh no, we're on the same team. Of course not. But the proximity to power, that being close to him, puts her, literally killed her. He killed her. He pushed her off of it, out of the hot air balloon, because he considered her dead weight. There is like, oh my goodness, no, we ran out of things to throw off and we're not going to be able to, the hot air balloon is too heavy. And he's like, oh, you got to go. And he literally throws her overboard. She did not see it coming. Why? Because she just assumed, oh, you white, me white, you power, me power, you military, me military. Clearly we're in this together. White ladies, and I'm seeing it play out in elections year after year, and I am so nervous about what is going to be happening in November. But hey, literally what to do. Hopefully something not terrifying happens. A lot of y'all really like voting for Trump. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about O'Rourke. I got my handy dandy for this one because I don't want to mess anything up. O'Rourke was born in Texas in 1860. And his father was killed in the Civil War by a Union soldier. Texas, 1860. Texas, lots of plantations, lots of slavery. 1860, when did slavery end in the United States? 1865. He remembers slavery. He knows slavery. And while we think, oh no, but he was only 5, the fact that his father died around this time, you remember your traumas. You could forget a lot of the good stuff that has happened, but you remember your traumas. Indigenous people, dark-skinned people, black people, there is a deep-seated hatred that this man has. And one thing about, he's gonna get what he came for. So as it relates to all the people of color that were on that trip, and then he goes and he sees an entire civilization full of brown people thriving. I mean, by their own standards, they were not going to, like, we know what it was like to be great. But here they are, resources, things that could benefit his life, and they're all brown people. And he came with a couple browns and blacks. Oh, murder them all, obviously. There was no way that Sweet served a purpose in their previous missions, right? Like, he was the army medic. They said that they've been on multiple expeditions together. Listen, you're the black man doing the job. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, so you're staying in line. But if push came to shove, he wasn't pushing or shoving. Kill him. If push came to shove, and then push did come to shove, it's like, literally, get rid of, everybody's going, you, lady, bye. I got money to make. He grew up in slavery times in Texas, and now he's a high-ranking military official. And anybody thought that he wasn't a villain from the get-go? Like, this movie, if you just kind of like look at it from a historical standpoint in this kind of way, you could kind of already tell what was going to happen with these people, unfortunately. But I think that when it came to this kind of context, the creators did a great job in laying out the framework, even though we don't get all of this information in the movie. You do have to do some digging. But like the white saviorism, I'm like, we didn't really need that. I would have preferred not that. But I think that I liked, when I say I liked, it's not that I was like, oh, this is good. I enjoyed looking at Atlantis from this perspective because it made a whole lot of sense. Because this movie was also created, what, in the early 2000s or something like that? Yeah, this is early 2000s mindset. Early 2000s, mid 2000s, I don't know. Literally, I have no concept of time. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please type them away in the comment section, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Oh, if there's any other movies that you'd like for me to do this kind of like dive into, my ADHD would love that. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.